Alright everybody, this is Thomas Byrd with Tabletop Life, here to do another quick video breakdown of my Ultramarine list for the Cherokee Open. I hadn't had a chance to get this out before, and we're about to head out to the tournament later today. Driving up there, it's going to be about a 4-hour drive, so I wanted to get a quick video going over the list before we hit the tournament, and hopefully, give you guys some insight on what I'm taking, where I'm taking it, and why I think it'll be good. We did have an RTT this past weekend. I did go 3-0 with this list, ended up finishing second in battle points, so pretty good. It did some work. I did win against Custodes. Did not play against Tal, but I have used this list against Tal, and I have won. So, not saying it's the kryptonite for those lists, but it does have some tools, and if you play it smart, you can pull out some victories. So, without further ado, let's dive into the list. And we'll talk shop and see what choices I made and what do you guys think. All right, here's the list, all displayed in its glory. I have the Storm Bird I'm going to be toting up there, so I'm sure I'll take some videos and pictures of the full display. So it's within driving distance, so I can tote the big Storm Bird out as well. Always is a great showpiece. But here's the list. We got 2 patrols and a Supreme Command. Gilliman is the Warlord, of course. I tried making lots of lists without Gilliman, but I always come back to Gilliman. The way I like to play this list, all the buffs that he gives, it's hard to replicate that in just a captain and a lieutenant. Alright, so at first patrol, you got Tigurius himself. He's going to cast Mighty Heroes, Veil of Time, and Psychic Fortress. Again, you need that invulnerable save to keep your guys, especially in this day and age of all the high AP. You need Veil of Time. That's helpful when people have fight last, or if you're trying to re-roll a charge and you don't want to spend CP. And Mighty Heroes, situationally good if you need to give a character an extra strength or attack or toughness. You got the Apothecary. I've changed this guy multiple times, but I've gone back to giving him the full boat. He's got the Selfless Healer Warlord trait. He's a Chief Apothecary. He's got the Vox, so his 6-up Feel No Pain is now extended to 6 inches. You need that against all the mass 2 damage. Every little 6 that you hit is potentially soaking up an extra wound that would otherwise just kill a Marine. You got the 10-man Intercessors with the Assault Autobolters. They have a Power Fist on the Sergeant. These guys are the workhorse units. You do have OPSEC in limited numbers, so these guys, are a big block. There are a lot of wounds. They can sink most damage pretty well. And in a pinch, and then if they need to fight, you have a lot of attacks, so you can get quite a bit of damage out of them, surprisingly, with Gilliman, giving them the full rerolls. Next, you got one big unit of 6 Eradicators with 2 multi-meltas, and the rest are all heavy meltas, so this takes advantage of the Ultramarine stationary trait in the Tactical Doctrine, so they can count as stationary as moving. These guys do big damage with all the damage mitigation. Having that guarantee +2 or maybe +4 from the heavy meltas to their D6 damage is very powerful. So these guys, if they get to shoot, they're slow and they cannot advance and shoot. But if they get to shoot big targets, they don't like to take all that. So that these guys are kind of very, very heavy hitters. Some of the things that you really need them for, like a lot of the orc stuff, has kind of been toned down. Admech Plains has been toned down. So some of the big targets aren't as prevalent. Dreadnoughts in Marine lists have kind of taken a hit. So there's always the question of, do you need a full 6? I like taking them in one big squad, so I have the option of to the last. I do always usually combat squad them, but there's a lot of choices. That's a lot of points right here. It's 310 points for this unit. So you kind of got to go back and forth. What could I buy if I only took one squad of 3? For the place of the other guys. So it's a tough choice, but I've so far, for that redundancy, having 2 units of these guys, pretty strong, and it keeps those big baddies kind of honest because they don't want to step out and take the full hits from these guys. This is the surprise unit in the list, a recent change. This list typically is very static, so I've added some mobility. These guys are 2 units of 3 scout bikes. They're pricey for what you get, but they do give some sneaky bonus abilities that are pretty useful in a lot of matchups, especially these days. So I do have an extra 5 points on the sergeant with the storm bolter, so that puts each squad at 95 points. They move 16. They're only 2 wounds because they're scouts. They have a 4-up save. Not the best profile to stay alive, especially in these day and age. But what they do get over a regular bike is a 16-inch move versus 14. They have an extra shotgun and an extra combat knife. So in combat, they're just a little bit punchier with 1 extra attack each, and then they actually have an extra 2 shots. So if you add in the storm bolter and the shotguns, with their 18-inch range, they're pumping out 22 bolter shots. So if you need some bolter shots on a mobile chassis, these guys are great. They're not super threatening, so sometimes these guys can hang in the back and do screening. Bike bases take up some good real estate to kind of zone out the board. And they also have the outflank special rule. So if you want to put them in reserve, doesn't cost any CP, which is a kind of critical commodity for many Ultramarine lists. And then they can come in from any board edge, so they're not limited by strategic reserve where they can't come in an opponent's deployment zone on turn 2. So them coming in the back, if the opponent, typically if I'm all castled up with no reserves, my opponent is free to put his cheapest, most inexpensive unit in a back objective, and I never really can get back there to threaten it. But these scout bikes kind of keep him honest. Now he's got a zone, he's got to keep that, otherwise there's going to take a bunch of bolter shots in the face. And these guys are great. I mean, 22 bolter shots, tactical doctrine AP1, you can just be like running over and killing some warp talons, some cultists, some you name it. A lot of the cheap chaff stuff, these guys are great at picking them off. If you don't need their bolter shots, you can use them for move blocking. They can be healed by Apothecary. They can do lots of little neat things. So it's a really toolkit unit that really has got me a lot of work. In the other patrol, we got Chaplain on bike. So this guy, that's a love-hate with this guy. He, in the past, I've changed up warlord traits. I used to have a Judiciar to make people fight last, with Dark Eldar taking a big hit. They're one of the prime candidates to use that Judiciar and fight last. There's still some other uses for him. That guy's always good, but situationally, he's not always getting his max value. And it did take away from other traits. So specifically on this guy or the Apothecary. So this guy has been taking Rites of War lately. The OPSEC is such a powerful rule. Sometimes you really got to have it. And this list is kind of limited on how many OPSEC units. So do you just give this guy Rites of War so everybody can have it? Or do you give him Wise Orator? Like the Chaplain needs to get buffs. In this list specifically, he's got to get those powers off. So if you're rolling on 3s versus rolling on 2s, if you take Wise Orator, you really feel the pinch when that guy flubs a roll and it's a critical turn, when you have to get maximum value out of your shots. So this list is tooled up to be maximum efficiency. It's a very fine line. If you start taking casualties early, like your firepower diminishes dramatically. So you have to get max value. So I've gone back to the drawing board and said, hey, I'm going to have to go through the pain and suffering of no OPSEC bubble. Some armies can OPSEC bully you, so you got to be very careful with your OPSEC units to prevent that. But you got to roll litanies on 2s. You got to have those litanies go off when you need them. So that's what I've gone with. He's walking the Seal of Oath relic. That's the Ultramarine specific relic. You love it. You need it. You want it. Pick an enemy unit within 6 inches at the beginning of the battle round, and then anyone within 6 inches of the Chaplain gets to reroll all hits and wounds against that target. So it's great against enemy units that have like one big bad unit. Or if you go first and you use your redeploy strats and you see here's a target of opportunity that's just kind of out on a fringe, you can kind of throw him out there, get the full rerolls, and got to get a kind of a guaranteed kill, or more efficient maximized shooting at that one target on turn 1. So that's a great relic, and he's great to have it because he's got the mobility to kind of drive around as needed. So if you redeploy other units, he can still turbo boost and get within range to give them the reroll. So you don't necessarily have to spend a redeploy on him to put him in range. Sometimes I've moved it to the foot guys just to kind of free up a relic slot for this guy to take the Benediction of Fury, because he always wants that fighting stick relic. But you always find that you need the mobility to make that relic work if you're redeploying. After that, we got 2 bodyguards. Vitric Scarred. These guys are fantastic. You're always questioning, well, how come I don't have 3? Because they always are being annoying. They're always doing work. They're always scoring points for you. They're a great counterattack unit. They're a great defensive unit. The 3+ invulnerable saves, sometimes you just make 3s and make your opponent very frustrating. At 3 wounds, you can heal them back with Apothecary. So if they leave one guy left on 1 wound, they're going to just come back full strength. So that can really mess with your opponent's mind. If they shoot a lot of firepower at them, they survive, and you just grow them back, and now they're back around, running around, doing things. 1 unit of 4 deploy infiltrators with the Helix. You kind of always want some 4 deploy, especially in some of these missions. You kind of want more than 1 unit. Infiltrators are kind of pricey, but if you're just going to have 1, sometimes that 12-inch deny is very strong and very powerful. So you just got to be careful, because you only have the 2 units of OPSEC, so you can't just 4 deploy them into oblivion and let them die willy-nilly. So you just got to be a little bit more circumspect in when and how you spend these guys. But they're a great choice, and sometimes they can just win games automatically by shutting down people's ability to deep strike in and charge. And then, last but not least, my favorite squad, the Hellblasters, 5-man. I always want 10, but points are always tight. I could take out these 2 units of scout bikes, and that'll leave me points to spare to take another squad of 5. But right now, they serve a different role with their mobility and some of their outflanking. Chase down some cheap chaff units. So instead, I'm going with the 1 5-man. The sergeant is upgraded to master crafted, so he can potentially do 3 damage on his overcharge. That guy, we single-handedly like overcharge and split fire, and that guy can pick up some 3 wound guys, no problem. Last but not least, this guy. It's not on the thing, but there he is. That's my Inquisitor, a Xenos Inquisitor, 65 points. I had a random 5 points I couldn't spend elsewhere. He is got a melta pistol. He's been upgraded, Arbiter of the Emperor's Will, to give him a Warlord trait and a relic. So his relic is going to be the Black Shroud, so he's -1 to wound. He's a Psyker, so he's going to know Psychic Veil. That power is, you cannot target him with ranged attacks unless he's the closest visible model. It's like the old character rules from 8th edition. And then you can't charge him unless he's within 6 inches. So that powerful ability is very powerful. And then he has a Warlord trait, Esoteric Lore, the Xenos Inquisitor Warlord trait specific, that lets him regenerate command points when my opponent spends. So on a 5+, if my opponent spends CP, I could potentially regen. So this list has 8 CP to start. It costs 1 to buy that for him, so I really started with 9. So he's kind of like, unless he's regenning multiple, he kind of is not paying for himself. But his little quirky abilities sometimes are super clutch. You can stick him out on an objective if he's not the closest model and he gets his power off. It's only warp charge 5. No one can shoot at him, so it's great to leave him on a back objective or a side flank objective. He can be all out on the open all by himself and nobody could target him. He's also great to throw out there on a flank if you know that they're going to deep strike in and they want to charge. Cannot charge him unless they're within 6 inches. They can't declare it. So if you deep strike in, they're 9 inches away. Sorry, can't charge him. So he can just single-handedly like block charges as well. So between him and the infiltrators, you can zone out some guys who just like, I have an automatic 3d6, or I want to get +2 to my charge. It doesn't matter. Like, you can't even declare it, right? So some little neat tricks there that you can throw down with that guy. And then he's also in the list because sometimes you're just looking for that third secondary. What am I going to take? This guy's great for Psychic Interrogation or Psychic Veil. So you're going to usually be in the center with this army. You want to take Oath, Psychic Ritual is what it's called. You can just go in the center and just pop that Warp Charge 4 power. So if your opponent doesn't have a ton of Psychers or no Psychers at all, just run in the center, cast that power a few times, you're good to go. Or a Psychic Interrogation, stay at 24 inches, Warp Charge 5. You don't even need line of sight, so he could be hiding behind a wall. Those pesky Tau want to shoot at you. You're just like, I interrogate you over and over again from behind this wall. So good secondary. It is a little bit risky, though, because if you commit to it and he gets killed early, that leaves Tigerius on the hook to cast powers to finish it, which I played a game last night where the Inquisitor got a little aggressive, got killed, and then all of a sudden, Tigerius is like, I really want to cast invulnerable saves, but I also want to get 3 points for interrogating. So the hard choices were having to be made. So that's a tricky one. You got to be careful with it, but it does give you a potential easy set of points if your opponent has no psychers at all. So just a bunch of toolkit stuff. That's the list. We're going to Cherokee Open in an hour or two. We're going to hit the road. So I will get some more videos while we're out there, but hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen here. If you have any questions about the lists, feel free to leave some comments. I will post updates of the videos. I'm sure we'll have a vlog of the event once I'm done, and I'll hopefully have some good results there that I can share afterwards and some lessons learned. But so far, this list has been doing work. I'm enjoying it. It's got tools. It does. I like it. It just takes some finesse to make sure you pull it off. We'll see how it does. We'll check in with you guys afterwards. Hit that like and subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.